My name is Chanel Dunn and I'm a paediatric occupational therapist with UMBO. Welcome to this introductory video on how to transition to using telepractice. Firstly, I want to acknowledge that some of you may be feeling a little apprehensive or uncertain about using telepractice. Making that transition from delivering therapy in person to using telepractice can be daunting. Just as you may be anxious starting any new job, it is completely normal to feel this when commencing with telepractice. The good news is you already have the skills needed to become a proficient telepractice clinician and that you may already be using different modes of telepractice in your clinical work. To clients, their families, or to their school. Maybe you share images, documents, or videos that you think they may find useful. Do you make follow-up phone calls? Perhaps in between sessions, you call clients or their families to discuss progress or address any new concerns that may have arisen. These are all forms of telepractice, as is of course video conferencing. Video calls can be a great way to conduct a telepractice session, but it isn't the only way. At UMBO, we believe in using a toolbox approach that is fit for purpose for each child and family. For example, if the internet at home is limited, a parent may first consult with you on the phone and then later share a video of their child's progress using the school Wi-Fi. To find out more, please read UMBO's document on what is telepractice. More about telepractice from a clinical perspective, let's video call UMBO co-founder and Chief Clinical Advisor, Ed Johnson. Hi Ed.
Hi Chanel.
Hi. So for those who may be wondering, compared to face-to-face therapy, is telepractice a legitimate clinical delivery model?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a really important question, but it's important to know what comes behind that. So we've got pretty big workforce shortages in rural and remote areas, and shortages in areas of expertise as well, such as complex communication. People have to travel a long way out in the bush, and there are many more people from low SES backgrounds in isolated areas than there are in the big cities. So people need more support out in these rural areas. It all comes together to tell us that we need a new model to support people with who are seeking allied health supports. And we know that disciplines like physio and audiology have used telepractice successfully in the past. Speech therapists have been using the phone and sending audio recordings for decades, and medical specialties in general practice are billing through Medicare for telepractice sessions now. We have the potential with telepractice to support people who have had little or no access to therapy before.
Yeah.
We can be more responsive as well, which is a big thing that people want. They want to be able to choose when and where they can see someone, and they want to be able to see someone more often, which is what we can do with telepractice as well.
Yeah.
So it gives people a bit more choice and control in how they access allied health supports.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's the current evidence behind telepractice research-wise?
So even though it's been around for quite a while, in OT and speech, in its current form, I guess, using the internet and using video conferencing and all these newfangled apps and services, the literature reflects that it is quite an emerging area of practice. So it is a little bit thin on the ground, but we do have a fairly strong evidence base for fairly prescriptive kinds of assessments and interventions. So standardised language assessments, delivering programs like the LibCon program to support people who stutter, and delivering training and coaching programs for things like keyword sign as well. There's evidence there and emerging in those areas. And large research teams are aware where this stuff's coming from. So the Australian Stuttering Research Centre, there's a lot of evidence coming out of there. So if you're looking for stuttering evidence, that's a great place to go. Also, the Wobbly Hub research team from Sydney Uni has been working on this for quite a while now. So people like Craig Fairweather are producing evidence in this area as well. And University of Queensland is doing some great work in audiology and also a little bit in stuttering as well. And some specific work with kids in rural and remote areas of Queensland. Exactly the same sort of model that we want to use with UMBO to reach people in isolated areas, so they can get more frequent and better quality services from OTs and speech pathologists. Practice isn't suitable for everyone, but we can get great results with a wide variety of client groups. So there's great evidence out there for achieving client outcomes with people with fine motor difficulties, people with speech and language difficulties, stuttering, like I mentioned earlier, and also things like sensory processing differences and complex communications and multimodal communication. So I'm talking about AAC there. My PhD research showed that there's usually a few key elements that you want to have in your telepractice toolbox that you're using, and a few kinds of different factors in terms of the client, I guess, demographics that tend to work better than others. So having a key support person in that relationship, just because you're engaging via telepractice doesn't mean you can forget that the important role of the key worker. So whether that's a teacher, whether that's a disability support worker, whether that's a mentor or a friend in the client's life, someone who can keep them on the straight and narrow, someone who can keep reminding them of their goal and what they were going to do with it, and be there to help them work on it while you're not Skyping on the phone or whatever it might be. There's a lot of success from my end that has happened with the coaching model. So coaching people to be able to help people in their environment or help their client, rather than just helping that client myself. Because if I do that, the work stops when I leave. If I train someone else to be able to do it, that work can happen continuously, especially when I'm not there. So I've seen a lot more success when I've worked that way, rather than trying to work just face-to-face, say, for example, on video conference with one of my clients. And having some knowledge of what a clinician does in this kind of sphere is really important as well, I've found. Just so you're on the same page with your client from the get-go. Obviously, they're not going to be an expert usually in your discipline, so you're going to have to educate them in some things, but they'll have a little bit of an idea about where they can start with their goals if they know a little bit about what you can do. And the most important thing for me, and also the most valuable thing for a lot of the clients and their families in my research, has been really constant and consistent open communication, being honest with each other about what you know, what you don't know, what you need to work on, being honest about deadlines, being frank and open about what's going on in your life. And I find that even just sharing a little bit about myself and gaining a little bit of trust that way can be really helpful in terms of gaining rapport with my clients. They tend to open up a little bit more and to be more willing to work more closely with me.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Ed.
No worries.
Thanks.
See you later, Chanel.
Bye. As a clinician, you already have the skills that lend themselves to delivering quality telepractice services. Let's break them down. Person-centered. You probably already do this in your clinical work, but it is even more important to be person-centered when using telepractice. What are the needs, wants, and goals of the client and family? What are their preferences and capacity? It is also crucial to know the social, physical, and community-based resources of the client and family, so you can utilise these resources without being physically present. Finally, as you would for any session, telepractice sessions need to be prepared for. This will include collaborating with all stakeholders, such as other therapists, schools, or family, preloading therapy activities, or selecting appropriate electronic materials to share. Be prepared, but also ready to be flexible, as plans may change unexpectedly, for example, according to the internet connectivity of the day. This is where the toolbox approach can be useful. Thank you for watching, and please take the time to look at UMBO's other training materials and resources on how to adapt to telepractice. UMBO also has a Facebook group for clinicians to ask questions, share, and discuss all telepractice related. You are welcome to join the group.